Despite Portugal's impressive 1.9% economic surge in 2024, significantly outpacing the Eurozone's average of 0.8%, this growth is yet to translate into a tangible improvement in the living standard of its people. Situated at the crossroads of Europe, Africa and the Americas, Portugal's strategic position has fueled a surge in its economic growth. Yet, beneath this boom lie serious challenges. The country's labour market is struggling, its population is ageing rapidly, social divides are also widening. What lies at the root of these challenges? Portugal over the years has built a name for itself. The country might not come to mind when you think of global superpowers. Yet it has made its way up the ladder to become one of Europe's most resilient economies. Its perfect strategic location between Europe, Africa and America has made it a key player in international trade and cultural exchange. And, come to think of it, Portugal has the necessary infrastructure to match the opportunities the location provides, boasting a seamless and efficient transportation network comprising, among other things, 5 international airports, a modern rail system, and major seaports such as Lisbon, Porto and Sines. The country is well connected with links to approximately 70 countries, making it a true gateway between continents. Portugal's access to the world's largest single market, a stable currency, and a wide network of trade agreements were all benefits it got from being a member of both the European Union and the Eurozone. The country's safety and political stability earned it the 7th position on the Global Peace Index in 2024. All of these achievements have given Portugal a name among other nations and have, in turn, built confidence in investors. In 2024, Portugal ranked 36th on the IMD World Competitiveness Index. All thanks to the efforts of its public sector. There has been an improvement in digital infrastructure and regulatory efficiency. So, how is the economy faring? Portugal experienced growth driven by robust activity in the services, industry and tourism sectors. There is also a surge in exports and a resurgence in investment. Portugal's economy grew by 1.9% in 2024 compared to the previous year. Its GDP hits €284.9 billion, a 6.3% increase, outpacing the 0.8% Eurozone average. Several factors contribute to this. Tourism, for instance, is a significant game changer in Portugal, accounting for 16.5% of the economy and providing jobs for a substantial percentage of its population. Tourists and a growing number of international visitors are drawn to its natural beauty, rich culture and affordable prices. Additionally, Portugal's tech sector is rapidly growing. Cities like Lisbon and Porto are emerging as innovation hotspots thanks to the presence of startups, venture capital and government support. Trade is another big boost to economic growth. In 2023, the country exported $85.7 billion worth of goods, mostly manufactured items, and experienced a 3.4% growth rate in exports. Imports were also higher, at $116.2 billion. By the end of 2024, Portugal had brought in over €200 billion in foreign direct investment. That represents 71% of Portugal's GDP. Key sectors include renewable energy, real estate, finance, tourism and tech. Lisbon attracted more than 65% of total investments, primarily from Spain, France and Germany. Over 60% of its electricity comes from renewable energy sources. Big projects in wind, solar and hydro are pushing that number even higher. To cap it all, the country is making notable progress in the labour market. However, social challenges exist. In recent years, Portugal has achieved several significant milestones in its economic development. However, this has not been the experience of the majority of its population. For a significant portion of the population, the cost of living is rising much faster than their incomes. The country now faces a complex mix of social challenges, including inflation, a housing crisis, unemployment concerns, and an ongoing brain drain. All these factors have been making life harder for everyday Portuguese families, and have also become a threat to the country's long-term social and economic stability. Let's examine how this unfolds. Currently, Portugal is facing a significant demographic shift, which raises concerns about the country's future economic and social stability. Portugal's population has been shrinking overall. The population declined by almost 300,000 between 2010 and 2020 due to low birth rates and unending emigration. By 2021, the fertility rate had fallen to just 1.4 births per woman, the lowest recorded in the EU, significantly below the level needed to maintain population growth. This contributes to an aging population, raising the dependency ratio. The question is, Who exactly is leaving? Here's the irony. While 20% of the population now holds higher education degrees, which is a major achievement, the local job market isn't offering enough well-paid roles to keep those graduates at home. Portugal is losing some of its most educated and skilled people, the very talents it needs to grow, innovate and compete in high-value sectors, thereby putting its long-term economic growth in doubt. Over the last decade, there has been a steady outflow of skilled workers, scientists, engineers, healthcare professionals, and IT specialists, all seeking jobs that offer better pay and clearer career paths. Currently, more than 2 million Portuguese people live outside the country's shores. In 2021, nearly half of those who emigrated from Portugal had a university degree. That's more than twice the share of college graduates in the overall population, leading to a significant brain drain. This has also further increased the demographic challenges. Many of those leaving are in their 20s and 30s, which is mostly the working and childbearing age, reducing the number of future taxpayers and families in Portugal. Remittances sent home from overseas reach over €3 billion in 2021, offering some financial respite, but they cannot replace the human capital being lost. With a sporadic increase in the aging population, an increasing number of elderly people, who are well above the working age, are being forced to work. Therefore, the pressure on pensions, healthcare, and public finances continues to grow. This imbalance has affected the country's economic outlook. With a reduced and aging workforce, driving innovation to achieve productivity growth becomes increasingly difficult. The government has, however, offered better research funding and incentives for skilled Portuguese individuals abroad, encouraging them to return home. They are also offering scholarship programs to reverse the negative trend of graduates leaving the country. Other incentives, such as digital nomad visas and startup-friendly policies, are provided to attract foreign talent. However, the unemployment issue remains largely unsolved. The European debt crisis had a profound impact on the labour market, and by 2013, unemployment had reached an all-time high of 17.7%. However, as the nation continued to experience economic recovery, that value continued to drop. In 2024, 64.1% of people aged 16 to 74 are employed. This is a remarkable turnaround, largely attributed to steady economic growth, the continued flourishing of the tourism industry, more flexible job policies, and government employment opportunities. However, that number hides a more complicated reality. Youth unemployment, for example, remains a big challenge. In December 2024, 64.9% of young people aged 20 to 29 were unemployed. This is due to a lack of relevant skills, limited access to vocational training, and the instability of short-term jobs and internships. Long-term unemployment also remains a concern, as many people with outdated skills residing in rural regions struggle to find work after extended periods. Many of them have chronic health issues. Underemployment is a major crisis too, mostly for women and aged workers who eventually end up in part-time job roles they did not choose. On the other hand, sectors such as construction, healthcare, and IT struggle to attract qualified workers to fill job vacancies due to emigration and an aging population. The government is doing all it can to contain this situation by expanding access to childcare for low-income families and encouraging more women to join the workforce. Additionally, the government has implemented programs such as vocational training, apprenticeships, and subsidies for businesses that employ individuals from disadvantaged backgrounds. Other effects include investments in career guidance, retraining programs, and targeted support for small businesses to connect people with available job opportunities. Wages have gone up too. This year, the average gross monthly wage was €1,525, and after the taxes and social contributions, it was approximately €1,270. It is worth noting that in Portugal, salaries are paid 14 times a year thanks to holiday bonuses. To help low-income workers, the government bumped up the national minimum wage from €820 to €870 this year. This is part of a broader plan to raise the minimum wage to €1,000 by 2028, aiming to increase the purchasing power of lower-income earners. However, despite increased wages, many families still struggle to keep up due to inflation. How about rising energy bills and high housing costs? All these have swallowed up the wages of many, putting pressure on the government to spend more on social support and ensure wages keep up with the cost of living. In Portugal, inflation not only increases the price of goods and services, but also deepens the gap between various social groups, having a significant impact on pensions and minimum wage earners. Many elderly people rely heavily on social benefits, but these are not sufficient to keep pace with inflation. As a result, material deprivation among older adults is becoming more visible. Low-wage workers are in a similar position. People working in sectors such as hospitality, retail, and agriculture often lack the leverage to negotiate better pay, especially when many of them are employed in part-time or temporary positions. A large number of Portuguese people depend on contract jobs that often lack security and a consistent income. From 2021 to 2024, inflation increased by 3.8% annually. In October 2022, it increased by 10.6%. This increase was largely attributed to global supply chain issues and soaring energy prices. Energy inflation alone jumped more than 30% in 2022, before easing in 2023, putting a serious strain on household budgets. Food costs went up too. Essentials such as bread, milk, and vegetables increased by 10% or more between 2022 and 2023. For lower middle class income families who spend a bigger share of their income on basics, this meant their money didn't go as far. To make matters worse, public transport and healthcare costs have also increased. By early 2025, the average household was spending around 20% more on essential services than they were in 2019. But wages didn't keep up at the same pace. Despite wage increases and economic recovery, poverty has risen. In 2022, 70% of the population lived in poverty, and employment no longer guarantees financial security. The consequences of all this finishing pressure are visible. Consumers' confidence has fallen as their income no longer keeps up with the rising bills. About 70% feel that their fixed expenses is fast outpacing their wages. By 2022, 6 in 10 Portuguese people felt worse off financially than they had the year before. In 2023, thousands of people protested in Lisbon for better wages, affordable housing, and better living conditions. In the last 4 years, over 12% of the population has been affected by food insecurity, and homelessness has increased by 78%. Over 10,700 people currently have nowhere to stay but the streets. Portugal's housing crisis is deepening, especially for low-income families. Between 2019 and 2022, the proportion of households spending over 40% of their income on housing increased from 13.8% to 19%. In 2022 alone, housing prices soared by 18.7%, the largest rise in 30 years, making it even harder to rent or buy, as inflation and interest rates also increased. The problem is particularly severe in Lisbon, Porto, and the Algarve, where foreign buyers from countries such as China, Brazil, and the UK are snapping up homes, aided by tax incentives like the Golden Visa. At the same time, the Airbnb boom removed many houses from the long-term rental market, thereby reducing the supply available to locals. Demand exceeds available housing, and new projects take a long time to complete due to bureaucratic delays. In 2020, Portugal ranked second among EU nations in terms of poor housing quality, overcrowding, and inadequate insulation. This condition has affected many women and children, with the introduction of rent controls and renovation incentives by the government. Improvements may be on the way soon. A 2% growth is expected in Portugal's economy by the end of this year, driven by investments in renewable energy, tourism, and digital industries. Easing inflation can also boost consumer spending after recent price hikes. With this beautiful future outlook, one must overcome deeper challenges to achieve long-term growth. For the future to look brighter, Portugal should enhance productivity by reducing bureaucracy, improving public administration, investing in modern infrastructure, and promoting widespread digital transformation. Education also needs reforms. Portugal spent 3.8% of its GDP on education in 2020, but faces STEM teacher shortages and skills mismatches, making vocational training and curriculum updates vital to reduce youth unemployment. Public finances must be managed more efficiently by cutting unnecessary tax breaks and investing in innovation and long-term projects to build a resilient economy. The country is advancing its green transition through stronger environmental taxes, but must ensure climate policies protect vulnerable groups. Labour shortages in construction, healthcare, and tech remain a concern, prompting efforts to expand affordable childcare and boost upskilling programs. Foreign investment remains strong, with €200.3 billion in overflows, but rising net income outflows, €10.6 billion in 2024, pose a risk to current account stability. Therefore, ongoing reforms are crucial to Portugal's competitive and inclusive future. Portugal's strategic strengths and recent economic growth provide a solid foundation for its future development. Still, challenges such as rising living costs, housing pressures, youth unemployment, and the loss of skilled talent remain serious concerns. The country has demonstrated resilience, but transforming its economic gains into the overall well-being of its citizens will require focused and inclusive policies. Share your thoughts in the comments and don't forget to subscribe.